Welcome to this joint meeting of the Gainesville City Commission and the Children's Trust Board. Thank you all for being here, and particularly thank you to the members of the board for joining us here at City Hall. Down here in the basement, I'm glad everybody could find the room. I appreciate you making the time and effort to be here. Madam Clerk.
We have the adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion second to adopt the city's part of this agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the city has an agenda.
All right,
Madam
so
Chair.
can I get a motion to adopt the trust agenda?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Very good. All right, Madam Clerk.
Yes, we have business discussion item 2023-1089, safe spaces properties suitable for community or teen center usage in the city. With the recommendation, the City Commission and the Gainesville Housing Authority discuss and take action deemed necessary.
Not the Gainesville Housing.
Children's Trust, I'm sorry.
It's all right.
It wasn't added in there on the recommendation, so I was on the fly, I apologize.
We have a fair number of joint meetings.
Yes,
so,
the children.
Sorry.
We've had a few, but you guys are our last one, I think.
All right, I'm not sure who put this item on. Who wants to lead on this one?
So, I think this came from us. We've had a number of providers, in the after-school space, the out-of-school time space, submit responses to proposals with the trust. And those entail a lot of people need places to hold and host students, children, in out-of-school time space. And so we discussed with the county and as well with the school board, so now we're here with the city, of coming together, compiling a list, hopefully offering to out-of-school time providers if they need a place to operate to serve students. And that's where we are. So schools, city, county, all of us have buildings, recreation facilities and things of that nature. I know you guys have lots of buildings. I don't know how much active recreation you all have in your buildings on one space, but that's what this is. This particular thing is kind of a joint facility usage type thing that we're going to be trying to entertain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chair Certain. This is actually a topic that I had asked to be agendaed at an upcoming City Commission meeting, because we have a number of nonprofits, we have a number of community organizations who are chomping at the bit for space as well. And we don't need to overstate the fact that the city has faced its share of challenges where we've had to pare back a little bit of our programming. And so I'm of the belief that we may not be offering all of the programs that we used to in our spaces, may be limited in some of the programming, but we certainly do have the physical spaces. So I don't know if the city manager is able to speak at all to this today, but she knows that coming up on one of our agendas, we are going to be having that discussion. Madam Curry, are you able to give at least a little insight? I see you're pointing to Roxy. Great. Thank you, Roxy.
Welcome, Ms. Gonzalez.
Hello, everybody. I'm Roxy Gonzalez. I'm the director of the Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Affairs Department. Even through our challenges this upcoming year, we've actually increased our programming by about 82%. We've worked with other organizations and nonprofit organizations as well as for-profit organizations to be able to supply different types of programs in almost all of our buildings. We've picked up Oakview and now have 2 senior programs that are going on, starting pretty much around 2, 3 o'clock, which is the after-school hour, all the way to 6 or 7. We also have another group that goes out there that does some theater performance classes for disabilities. That also utilizes that facility there. Our Rosa B has been packed with dance classes and organizations. There's one facility which I am open to any organization to come and want to do programming out of there, because we've been challenged in booking that and being able to do that, and that's TB McPherson. So we have that building there that is somewhat vacant. The only times we are able to facilitate that is for our teen programs during the summer. So that has increased in participation as well. And then during the summer, we have right now is 2 big facilities. I believe it's East Side Recreation Center. I'm looking back because we just changed it this year. East Side Recreation Center and Albert Ray Massey Recreation Center is where we're running majority of our summer camps, and our participant numbers, since instead of having multiple satellite locations, we've actually increased. Pretty much we doubled, almost tripled our numbers in participation by doing that in those general locations, and that allows us to have more staffing and more safety. So in the summer, some of the other locations might be a little bit less use, but we're open to having those discussions. So currently what we do is they either reach out to myself, and then I gear them over to either Cherie Kelly, who oversees our youth services and educational programming, or to Dwight Jackson, who is our recreation operations manager, who oversees all the facility rentals. And the reason it's either or is because if there is a partnership in place, or if there is a, some type of agreement, MOU of some kind, then it would all go through me to be able to filter how we do that. If it's just a usage where they're going to collect revenue and they're building revenue, then it goes through Dwight Jackson because we create a contract where it's a rental fee that goes in place of that. And then one that is, we're working right now with Porter's Community Center, and we're working with the community to pick up more the volunteers. The community wants to do more volunteer work with the community to pick up the usage of the facility. So right now we are in talks with them to do a whole different type of process. So whether they partner with us through the volunteer process so that it's not any fee towards the community members, but they can do that whether they partner through our programs or whether we staff the weekends to make sure that they can do some volunteer work or activities, whether it's yoga classes or whatever it is they want to do. So they're bringing me in about 2 to 3 weeks, they're bringing me a lesson plan to be able to fill that one. And then during the summer, what we do is we've been working with the HUD program was able to supply us some funding with the COVID relief funds to be able to do a summer camp for the community free of cost for those that live in the Porters area. And the rest, anybody else that's outside of the Porters area, to pay $20 a week to be part of that, or $25, I forgot exactly what it was, so don't quote me. But it was a really nominal fee, and so they were there all summer long and did a performance at the end and did the whole thing. And the MAPS program is, it pretty much went from poetry to performance to art to drawing comic books and all sorts of stuff. So they have a lesson plan that every week they created something different and we're able to bring stuff home. So currently that's what we have in all our facilities. MLK, summers we have midnight basketball. During the school year, right after school programs, or a lot of our athletics from basketball to football, cheerleading, and so forth. So that one's actually a really busy building that goes in and out. And we also have open gym for the community to be in there and play, and we don't want to remove that. But it's also a rental facility, right? So on the off times that we don't have anything booked, programs take precedence and then goes into the booking. We do rent the facility for events and locations. And then, the standard Thomas Center, A facility is a rental location as well for weddings, destinations, meetings, so forth. So it's not, we still do run some programming out of there, but very minimal because it's also a museum. So we're really picky as to what we can and can't do within that location. And I believe I covered most of it.
Can I ask you about a couple?
Absolutely.
Wilhelmina Johnson?
Wilhelmina Johnson's under contract. So I will let Leslie clarify a little bit more as to how that contract works, because she oversees that.
And is that the Cultural Arts Coalition you're talking about?
Yes.
So every 5 years, the Wilhelmina Johnson Center goes out to RFP, and then it's typically a 3-year contract plus 2 extensions of 1 year. It typically came with a $50,000 stipend to help run that facility, to do programming for the community, to do youth programming. They do a gardening programming and a science programming out of there. With budget cuts right now, we did fund $50,000 for this first year, but their current contract has no funding in subsequent years. But it did just go out to RFP and has just gone under contract for fiscal year '24 moving forward.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Clarence R. Kelly?
Clarence R. Kelly, yes. So we actually have, I forgot about that one. That's one of our newer ones too. Well, not newer, but newer buildings. We have senior programming that goes on during the day. It starts Tuesdays and Thursdays for sure, and then if they want to get in there Wednesdays and Fridays, they do as well. On Wednesdays, we host a exercise class for them with one of our staff members. Rod Clark was originally doing that, and then now it's another one of his staff members that has learned it and has continued it. So we have those things going on there during the day, and then after school care comes in, once school ends, they go in and they're there till 6. 6:30, and then we have had our cultural affairs division go out there and do once a month concerts out in the back area, which is really cool. I was really floored the last time I was out there. So that, and then it's also a rental facility, so people do rent it and utilize it. It's actually a little more utilized than it was when we first started. When we first started, we came across some issues and concerns. And now we've picked it all up and have been able to up the presence.
I've been out to a couple of those concerts out there. They are pretty nice. If anybody gets a chance, please go. And that mural on the back is beautiful, Roxy.
Absolutely.
That mural is amazing.
Absolutely, you did a great job.
I did want to, while we're talking, or while we're here on Clarence Kelly, I do have one more facility I want to ask you about, but while we're here, one of the things that was brought to my attention relatively recently by some constituents was that they noticed that the numbers were a little small here. And so what I'm wondering is a couple of things. What your vision or your plan is to either boost that attendance, because we've got a community that is immediately surrounding it that I think would definitely benefit from some of the programming that you're doing there, but also if, in the spirit of what we're discussing around the table here, if there may be an opportunity to partner with some of these organizations that the trust has been hearing about, that I've been hearing about, to allow some, I guess, in tandem programming.
Yeah, so there's always that possibility. No matter, even if I have active programs going, I'm never opposed to having those conversations. I'm extremely open to that. So I come from other agencies that's what we did, right? So you have programs, you partner with them, either slowly incorporate them into your program or say, hey, you know, this program's, what they're doing is bringing more participation, and you kind of wean off and you kind of let them run it and move around or figure out how to facilitate it and work with them. One of the new directions we're headed in is to pick up and leverage these organizations that are official organizations that have no platform, right? So you create a partnership, and whether it's a 70-30 split or if it's no cost to nobody, but it's a service to the community, that all depends on what their business model is. And that helps them kind of start and begin where we run the registration, we run the finances, we pay them out at the end of the sessions, you know, those things to kind of get them up and running, to understand how that process goes, to assure they have insurance, to work with them through the process. Those are things that we've been starting to do. And so that way we're helping these other nonprofit organizations or the organizations in general to be able to leverage what they do to have more services out in the community with our constraints of what we have, because I can't just go and get 80 more staff members. So I need to utilize that, and we want to utilize that, but we want to help in the same time.
For sure, for sure.
So yeah, so that's kind of where we're headed for that, and in looking at picking it up. So this past year, I've been here, I'm going on 2 in the end of January, 2 years as director. So this past year, it was really a focus on, all right, let's see how we can pick up porters. And then in that process, let's throw in different programs at CRK. Then from there, now let's go CRK and let's reach out to the community in general and be out there on the doorsteps, knocking and saying, hey, what do you want to see? How do you want to see it? Hear from them to be able to pick up more programming there on our end to see what we can do. Through that process, I'm not opposed to these organizations coming in and trying, because everything's trial and error. Every neighborhood's different, every community's different, every reaction and feedback we're going to get from every area that all of our facilities are located are going to be completely different. What I do at Eastside Recreation, if I do it at Porter's, it does not work, right? So we understand that, and we're taking the steps to do that, but it is going to be one location at a time, and through that process, yes, we're willing to utilize other organizations.
Sure, I'm really glad to hear that. I think that's important for us to hear in this conversation today. Last question about a facility that I could think of right off the top of my head was Cone Park.
That's Eastside
That's-
Recreation
that's-
Center.
Okay, thank you
Yeah,
very much.
Eastside Recreation.
And what did you say about it?
So we have our full-on summer camp goes there.
Okay,
So we have one on the east side, one on the west side. So it's full-on summer camps that go on there. We have an after-school program that goes there. We have Dance Alive now that utilizes the dance room. We just partnered with UF so that they can bring in an organization to use the dance room there as well. We had some yoga classes that are running out of there during the day. But there is still space in the sense of timing. So it has to match the timing of whoever's coming in there, because we're not pushing out the after-school care, and we can't have adults or the public in that same area when the kids are there.
Understood, understood. I'm glad you mentioned that last point that I want to make. Went on a tour a couple of weeks ago, went by the Porter's Community Center, and I know staff was there preparing for the after-school program, but my question was along the lines of what you just brought us to. Because staff was already there, and the facility was not accessible at that time to the public, the ability for programming to happen before those kids come in. There are, as you know, seniors that are there that may have been able to utilize the space. You have computers that are there where people could come in, surf the internet, do some job searching, whatever it is, whatever the needs of the community are. So I'm glad to hear you say, Roxy, that you are open, because I think that's very important. I'd love to hear that we are programming the spaces effectively and efficiently, even in light of our budget cuts. But I'm certainly even happier to hear that there is space to bring in additional partners to leverage what we're already doing,
Yeah,
and
so
to bolster that.
Yeah, so I would like to state, so Porter's Community Center is one, right? So we offered, there was a request to offer senior programming, senior game day, or just for them to come in and out as they please and utilize the facility, and I did that for up to 6 months. And gave them days that they requested, times that was requested, and nobody showed up. So that's staff cost, I don't really have. But in order for those things to occur, I need to have staff in the building. So there needs to be a bang for your buck at that point, right? So there needs to be some type, if the community is actually utilizing the building, then I'm more than happy to figure it out and put staff in there. But if after some time, the community is not utilizing the building, then I need to pull the staff to utilize them elsewhere. When we have nonprofits and groups and organizations that utilize our building, I still need to staff it, because I don't give away keys. So we still need to staff it. So I still need a staff that's going to be in there that will open it. So if those programs are not successful, we will have the conversations to seize what they're doing, because if not, we're spending money to not have no use in there at the end of the day either way. So those things are all part of the conversations and are all under consideration as well.
Thank you so much, Roxy. Thank you.
Any questions?
So, it sounds like McPherson is the only space that you have that's vacant during the after-school hours?
Yes.
McPherson, okay. And then, do you have a list of the other spaces for the times that they have, like in the out-of-school time, because that's pretty much summer, that you could possibly give to Marcia, and she could have, if we have a nonprofit or something that's coming to us and they would like to partner or provide space, programming, someplace. So we're not gonna like go out, but we would like to be like a resource when we open up a funding opportunity and folks are looking for space.
No, absolutely, and I appreciate that. Feel free to email me when they come around, and my response is 24 hours, you'll get something, even if I'm on vacation, so you'll get something. But email me when those come up, because it's hard, it's a first come, first serve. I can give you a calendar today, tomorrow's gonna change. So, because they're rental spaces too, right? And we have to consider those continual annual rentals or those rentals that I've already done way in advance. But if you email me what it is, then at least it gives that organization, then it gives me an opportunity to have the discussion with them to see when the best start time is and when, even if it's pre the application process. You know, so that way they're applying with a more accurate, consistent application, and that we can actually communicate with our staff and say, all right, we're gonna hold this because they're gonna apply, and so forth. And I'm more than happy to attend your meetings, and give you, and be able to communicate with anybody that you'd like for me to communicate with, and to express our opportunities that are out there.
Great. Thank you. Commissioner Chestnut.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So it sounds like the space we have available today and in the immediate future is TB McPherson. And if we need a motion to offer that as a space, I'll be happy to put it on the table. To offer that as a space suitable for community or teen center usage in the city for the Children's Trust to consider.
So I'm not sure if a motion is really needed. If
Then,
we-
then what I'd like to say is that what we can offer is the TB McPherson Center.
That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think our staff
yeah.
can reach out to the nonprofits that we're working with and let them know that.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Did I hear y'all act in at least one building as, or is this all the buildings, that y'all act as an incubator for programs when you were speaking?
Sorry.
When you were speaking, I thought you said that there was a program that y'all had available for startups where they could, that y'all would help facilitate their operation, and it sounded kind of like an incubator. Is that something that's offered?
So it's not a program per se or an incubator, it's a process, right? So we've kind of started the process of communicating with organizations to be kind of a kickoff. So there's a Mommy Stroller Club. So Mommy and Me Stroller Club that wants to do exercise in the parks, but they have a nonprofit organization, they never started something like this, but they need to charge because the instructor that's coming, they have to pay it off. Well, we can't allow them to go and make transactions within our parks, so we do a percentage split, and that one becomes a 80-20 split. So there's a tier, so it's either 70-30, depending on how big and how much the program's going, and if it's established per se, and then an 80-20 where the city makes 20%, which covers the rental cost and the staffing cost. And then the organization that's running that will get 80% of their profit.
Marcia, does that sound like something, because one of the things that we talk about, startup nonprofits or groups that want to start something and they need assistance. Is that something that maybe y'all could commiserate to see if maybe that's an avenue available in the future for some of them?
Possibly. We were talking more about training, like how do you, budget and those kinds of things, but I'm not opposed to that. It sounds like all of it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, it would seem, right? Now, the only catch here is a lot of these organizations that come to us and want to do something, I want to say a good percentage of them don't have the proper insurance, don't have the workman's comp liability, so that if they have more than one employee, or I think it's two employees, something like that, they need to have workman's comp. So they refuse to, they don't want to do that. And they don't want to go through supplying the insurance, assuming that the city's going to take the fault for it. But we're not. When you're directing instruction or dealing with the public, especially youth, you need to have that liability that covers the city as well as the individuals that are there. And so once that comes to play, they're like, no, not interested. So I do want to state that all those documentations need to be part of it. There's a process. Now, we tend to walk people through, but we do get into that point where they're like, no thank you. So I do want to state that, because if we do go into having conversations, I'd like that conversation to be had in advance to make sure that those things are all part of it.
And that's part of what our building capacity training would be.
Awesome.
Is talking to them about those are the needs if you want to go after grants and those kinds of things and really expand what you're doing. You have to have, those clearances and all of that. So that's our building capacity training.
So Commissioner Chestnut and then Commissioner Bowe.
Thank you. I think Marcia just answered my question, because it was going to be on the insurance. So, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Commissioner Bowe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I was just thinking along the same lines of building capacity. And I know several of us, we're kind of in a lot of overlapping circles here, and one of those is the Community Foundation, which had the Center for Nonprofit Excellence, which does exactly that. What forms, how do you register, what do you do, how do you get a board together that's worthwhile, and a lot of us have been in those circles, so to the extent that they already have that, that's the area where you get that professional development through you.
That's who we are partnering
I
with
figured.
to provide the training.
All right, so that's perfect for those organizations, and then they're basically on their way to potentially rent space or use space collaboratively. I was kind of thinking about one other thought related to Chair Certain. I don't know if this is something you can comment on in your other role. Was I know several months ago, several of us toured Duval Elementary School. Partner. At the time, there were two organizations in there. Mr. Superintendent, I don't know if that was still going on and you were using that gigantic space, or what plans you may be able to comment on, if at all.
There's still two organizations in there. And then we have a couple groups. Our chief of security does training in there, safety training with the school threat assessment teams, and with, I think he's had up to 50 of our local law enforcement agents in there. And the custodial staff is trained there as well. So I believe those leases expire May 31st on the two groups that are in there right now.
But actively still using it, I would suspect, or probably have some interest also, because that's a
Right.
lot of
Lots
space
of space.
over there,
Yeah.
lots.
The seniors were there until Clarence B. Kelly opened up, and then they moved on down there. They were using space there as well.
Thank you for that, Mr. Superintendent.
Yes, sir.
Does the city still offer teen zone like at the middle school, the after-school programming?
Teen zones, so we have our after-school program, but not a teen after-school program. We only offer that during the summer, and then we have midnight basketball, which is for middle school and older.
Teens, it's been a lot of years. Teen
But
zone
I know
used to
what
be
you're
at the, you know what I'm talking, it was at the
Yes,
middle
yes,
school.
yes.
My kids were
I know.
at Bishop and
Yeah.
Westwood, it was there, and kind of play space where it was out of school time. We talked a lot as a trust, as well as coming up in our strategic planning about occupying teens with productive type, positive type activities, so they don't have a lot of idle time. And so that's kind of where our conversation has gone. We have a lot of demand for after-school programming, in addition to summer programming, but especially in the after-school space. A lot of demand for that.
Commissioner, did you?
I did, yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner
I
Rhodes.
wanted to add this, it is not a city facility, but I've been to a couple of community meetings over at the Vineyard. And they are now advertising that space as a community hub. The pastor of that space wants individuals to start seeing it more as a community space for people to come in. It sounds as though they're really trying to repurpose and re-envision how that space is used. So I did want to put that out there. I think it would, to the extent that the trust is interested, perhaps reaching out to Pastor Rayburn would also be a good idea, because I do know that he is providing space for individuals, particularly youth. He is focused on providing space for youth.
Commissioner Rhodes?
No, in Lincoln Estates.
Oh, Southeast
Boys.
Got it.
Ms. Gonzalez, the Thelma Bolton Center, we shortly, at some point, will have a very newish, new shiny building. What are some of our, do we envision that is going to be busy, jam-packed with, on the rental side, immediately, further into the future, days of the week? What have we been looking at that? Because I know that it's essentially, will be a very centrally located facility that will have hopefully a lot of capability. And so where could that enter into this?
I'm just trying to build the building. No, no, I'm just kidding. No, we that was all part of our pre-discussions, right? So we were, so really ultimately is we really do think it's going to be an influx of amount of not just rentals, but participatory arts as well, right? So that's partnering with a lot of different organizations that do dance, theater, drama, singing, the whole shebang of participatory arts in that aspect and that element. Because when we went through the process of A, B, C, and now D. Through that process of determining what goes where, we met with organizations and community members to see what the needs were. So the dance floors were crucial. Right now, the only other wooden dance floor outside of Rosa B is one room in East Side Recreation Facility. And then, so it was hard, and there's no mirrors in there. I mean, there's one mirror, but no bars, right? So it limits what's what. So we do see an influx of programming, participatory arts, but we also see an influx of rentals. Because at the end of the day, it's a facility that's located in an area that is located where people access and know about it. It's a historical building, everybody knows about it. We also see it as an educational piece, right? To be able to educate the community of what that building stands for, what it did, how it impacted Gainesville and the whole shebang. So we're trying, so we see a lot of use to that, we really do, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We see a lot of use to that that's going to open up Rosa B again, right? Because a lot of them right now are in Rosa B. So there possibly will be a shift in that, but then that's where it's our department's responsibility to pivot and say, where do we go with Rosa B? So those conversations have already started. So I guess that's where we're at, and I can't give you a definite to say, hey, this is what we see happening, because it changes. Depending on how long it takes to build it, depending on where the community's at, where we're headed, what priorities are, for the neighbors in the city. So all that's going to vary, but ideally, yes, we do see that we'll get a lot more, but we are planning on utilizing a lot of that for the local groups that offer primarily things for kids and for youth and teenagers, and then also looking at the adult levels as well.
Okay, I just wanted to have that in here because it's something that we look forward to, but it's hopefully going to be pretty well programmed. Not going to have potentially a lot of extra time. Youth will be there, but through other programs that already exist, less so after school, that particular type of activity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping to get salsa classes in there, I don't know.
And hopefully not just during the day for seniors, but in the evening, so some of us can go.
But I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you all for the discussion. We have any public comment on this? Okay. All right, I'm remiss, I should have at the beginning of the meeting, I take it for granted that everybody knows each other, but I think that may not be the case. I'm Harvey Ward, I'm the mayor. Go around.
Ed Boat, one of the city commissioners.
Desmond Duncan Walker, one of the city commissioners and Mayor Pro Tem.
Ken Cornell, county designee for the trust.
Lee Pinkerton, appointed by the governor for the Children's Trust.
Tina Certain, and I'm the school board member on the trust.
Denise Ferrero, I'm the judge on the trust.
Shane Andrew, Alachua County Public Schools designee on the trust.
Casey Willits, Gainesville City Commissioner.
Brian Eastman, Gainesville City Commissioner, District 4.
Cynthia Chestnut, City Commissioner at Large.
Thanks, y'all, I should have done it earlier, I appreciate it.
Oh, and Marcia.
So, yeah, let's,
Marcia Kinder, Executive Director for the Trust.
thank you. And our city manager, Cynthia Curry.
Okay.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Yes, 2023-1088, informational update on the age-based fare-free transit program with the recommendation of the City Commission and the Children's Trust of Alachua County receive the staff update on the age-based fare-free transit program.
Mr. Gomez, you want to give us an update on that, please?
Good afternoon, Jesus Gomez, the City Transportation Department. This program is an age-based program. It's been in place for 2 years now, and it's been very successful. We have, what this program does is, instead of collecting fares and passes from those age groups, the under 18 or 65, we replace it with funding from the City and County Commission. So this program has been very successful. We carried over, last year, over 500,000 passengers, which is a cost per trip of 42 cents. So it's working really well, and I'm here in case you have any questions. The youth group has been over 300,000 passengers, and the over 65 has been about 135,000 trips.
I'll supplement. Earlier in the budget process, we did recommend to the commission an elimination because we were trying to balance the budget, but the commission did reinstate at 115,000, so it is in the budget for fiscal year '24 and matched by the county.
So I know it's a popular program. And I know that because when it was on the chopping block, we had a lot of people speak up for it. And it's certainly successful, and it's one of those things we worked hard on for years to get moving forward. I'm happy to see it exist. I wonder if there's an opportunity for us to make it more successful by reaching out and doing some training programs, like bring one of the electric buses, one of the cool buses, to high schools and middle schools, and do a little touch and feel and explain to kids how to use it, as well as going to the senior center again, which we've done once or twice, to run some training on that. I went to the one at the senior center, one of the ones there, and I could see light bulbs going off over people's heads. I mean, it was a really useful experience for people who have wanted to use the bus, but really didn't know how to use the bus, and just couldn't, because they had not done it, they didn't know what the experience was. So to get on and walk through and have Mr. Idiaga drive them around for a couple blocks, they felt better about the experience, and I'm sure the same would be true of middle school and high school students. So just thoughts on that.
Superintendent Andrew would have to
Yeah.
take that one on.
Absolutely, and I think we probably want to start with the high schools, because so many of our students are employed and have jobs. And so I think starting with them, working with our city schools, and then after we do that, move on to our probably 7th and 8th graders. I know some parents are reluctant to put some of their children, depending on their age, on the bus, but certainly with that rising 8th grade group, because they'll be into high school the next year, I think it would probably help us out in a lot of ways. Getting them 2 jobs and help get them to school attendance-wise when they miss the bus. That don't give up. There's a free ride that might drop you off right in front of East Side, Gainesville, Higher Buolds if you really want to get there, you know. So we would definitely work with you and be glad to coordinate that with you.
Very good. Thank you.
300,000 youth, that's good.
I have a question for Mr. Gomez. What percentage of our total ridership does this represent nowadays?
That's about 10%.
So it's a
We carry 5.1 million passengers this year.
big percentage. I'll say that the knowledge to do this isn't just even under 18-year-olds. Someone who works at UF, I encounter my colleagues who don't know that they can ride the bus for free as a UF employee, and then don't even know the process. They've never been on. They're just so glued to their cars, and you know, and there was a recent complaint, something I forget, construction, whatever. Parking was going to be harder. And I was like, you do realize there's a brand new bus. I think this was the county's new bus out to Jonesville. And I said, brand new bus, Jonesville. We'll get you there. This person had an injury or something, and they said, well, I don't know how. Like, that badge you're wearing every single day, you just flash it and get on. And so like the knowledge really is a big piece of that. And sadly, I think sometimes our children learn faster than adults, so we might as well teach them when they're hot and ready for it. You know, they're grasping for knowledge. So I really like the idea of doing that, and it really connects them larger to the city of Gainesville, what we offer, gets them particularly out of some friend's car that they perhaps might not need to be in. And the bus, despite people's thoughts, our buses are safe. Riding physically in a bus is far safer than being in your friend's car. We know the statistics. Teenagers driving are pretty dangerous.
We've met your friends.
Yeah, exactly. Parents should know their kids' friends. That our bus drivers are wonderful and they're well-trained people, but then physically that bus you're a lot safer in than getting into someone else's car and driving around, fooling around town. So.
Where does the Jonesville bus, I've seen it turn on 143rd Street, what does it end up going to the park and then turn around and coming back?
To the Publix area and come back.
But I don't see any signs, are there, like, how would you get on it in that area?
Yeah, there are signs, not many on the county side because we're trying to add more to it, but there's in the Publix area, you should see a RTS sign.
At the Jonesville Park area?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll have to pay attention. I've seen it.
Jonesville Publix, not the park.
Oh, I have, okay.
Not the park, yeah, the
Oh,
Publix.
okay. I have to pay attention. I've seen the bus, but I didn't know I haven't seen a stop, so I need to pay attention to something.
Chair Certan's a potential consumer for
Yes.
You mean we'll ride that bus sometime?
Yeah, we're gonna send you the map and you have the stops are
I'll have to do that, I'll have to.
on that map, you can see it.
Yeah, really,
Publix
as
and park.
Commissioner Willis was alluding, it's less about, for a lot of people, it's less about the routes, because you can find the routes online, you can figure a lot of that out. It's just the experience of how do I get on the bus, what do I do, how do I get the
Right.
bus to stop at the right place? Which is pretty intuitive once you get there, but having to do it the first time or two is intimidating. And that keeps a lot of people from using the system. If we can break through that, we get a lot of places. Commissioner Chestnut.
So maybe a video on how to ride RTS on Channel 12.
He's on our website and yeah,
Yeah.
we can definitely put on Channel 12.
One Saturday, I had to show my son because, he was in 9th grade, had basketball practice 10 o'clock in the morning, so at 14 you don't drive. And I was on East Hawthorne Road at G-Tech at that time, so I had to drive all the way home to get him, bring him back, the GHS or the Sidland near, come back and pick him up, take him home. So I did that for like a week, and I'm like, okay, if you want to play Summer League, this is what you're going to do. So I showed him how to ride the bike to the bus stop, put the bike on the front, where to get off. The number 8 bus came right, anyway, but he was like, so what if somebody tried to take me? I'm like, they're going to have to pay us to take you back. But, because he had never ridden it, so he didn't know. But just after showing him, so he did it all summer, but it was, you do have to show them because they don't know.
Yeah.
So that's good. Good to hear that the free fire, that it's staying in the budget and that it is being used, so that's good.
Very good.
Anyone else have any questions? Any comments?
I'd like us to bring those, the cool buses to some of the older populations too. So if you're gonna be a cool kid, you need to be a cool old kid, maybe at the senior center. And get rid of the intimidation factor.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Chair Certain, Mayor Ward, if I may. With the buses, we may also want to look at, with our programming with Children's Trust in the summer, the appropriate age groups that may utilize that and which buses would help assist different communities to our said summer programming. And again, share that with providers as well as the children being served by them, because that could be a barrier in the summertime is how do I get to a specific program?
The summer work program.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Some of that is doing the legwork, telling people what buses go by a site.
Right.
What your programs, others, even, I don't know, on city programs through, let's say, Parks and Rec, whether we do a good enough job saying, this event is at the senior center, these are the bus routes that stop by there, because people kind of might remember a few, but, I have been on the 6 bus, I have been on the 8 bus, I know how to get there. That kind of prepping people to say, we usually tell people where to park. We do a really good job. Big event, this is where you park. And then we don't ever tell people, this is how you could get there besides driving your personal vehicle. So I think whether it's in the individual programs that the trust funds, trying to have that culture of there are buses, whether it's for the people under 18 or anybody else, emphasizing that, doing the work ahead of time so that someone knows, oh, it is on a bus route,
Yeah,
and
we should-
I can get there.
We should add that to our RFPs, is your program within walking distance of a bus route.
Yeah, good information.
Because I think to the mayor's point, if we show them once or twice and they have a good experience, that helps the transportation.
Okay, any public comment on this? Madam Clerk.
We have 2023-1090, Community Task Force on Gun Violence, with recommendation the City Commission assist in partially funding 8 additional mentoring, character-building programs for 1 year, possibly split costs with the county. And Children's Trust of Alachua County would be the administrator, programming, support, and mentoring all programs.
Okay, is there a staff item on this? Does anybody want to?
Marcia, would you?
Actually, I'm gonna have Christie, you wanna share what we did in your conversation with the eight?
Sure. Good afternoon, Christy Goldwire, Director of Program Operations for the Children's Trust of Alachua County. The board approved with our allocation of $500,000 funding for 7 to 8 programs that applied for the Youth Mentoring RFP. There were additional programs that scored between 70 and 80 on our RFP application that the board was very interested in the trust reaching out to them to find out if they would be interested and able to implement a modified version of their mentoring program at the rate of $30,000 a year. We have reached out to all of those individual organizations. They are 100 Black Men, Concrete Rose Foundation, Gator Junior Golf, Greater Bethel, Just For Us, Old Town Ministries, Wake Up and Dream, as well as the Willie Mae Stokes Community Center in Micanopy, Florida. And they all would be able to implement a revised version of their youth mentoring program at $30,000. There are 2 of those programs, and I have provided that information to city staff, but there are 2 of those programs that are less than $30,000, as they only requested one about $9,300 and the other $15,000.
Thank you.
So, Christie, one question. I think Willie Mae Stokes is making over all the programs that we would possibly ask for a partnership, you all have to be inside the city limits, correct? So could you, we'd have to let the city staff know that?
Yes, that
Willie Mae
is.
Stokes is making over, I know that one right offhand.
Of the 8, there are 2 that I believe are outside of the city of Gainesville, and that would be the Willie Mae Stokes Community Center, as well as Old Town Ministries.
And where is Concrete Rose?
That is also within the city limits. Now, one thing as we research further, we would need to ensure, because some of them may want to reach more children within the county, as our funding is countywide, but we would need to do some more research and to ensure that those that, if the city was interested, that they provide services to the city of Gainesville residents. Only.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Christy. As everybody knows, this is an issue that's very near and dear to my heart, and I'm very excited that the Children's Trust has seen fit to move up public safety, particularly with the interest in gun violence, higher up in your strategic plan. Thank you for doing that. I think it's now your priority 3. Thank you very much for that. And so with that, I am always of the inclination to want to find ways that we can partner with you. I will say this, my first, I guess, question when I looked at this agenda, the first thing I saw was Community Task Force on Gun Violence. And I know that that was a conversation that this commission began with the county commission a few months back. We have not fleshed out what this is. So I was a little, honestly, this kind of threw me off. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear about the use of this phrase, Community Task Force.
If I may, Commissioner Cornell, do you want to address this? Was one we talked about at our meeting where we wanted to kind of see if there was more movement from the discussion, the joint discussion that you all had with the county. That's how it came about during our.
I mean, right now, we are funding how much in the mentoring program?
$500,000.
500,000. And so I think the idea here is that if the city and the county could also kind of add to that funding, we could expand that programming, and the trust could serve as kind of the administrative body to make sure that the mentoring programs were in line with what our goals are.
Okay. I think my confusion was that there's a meeting that's coming up with Chair Prezia, myself, and President Brody out at Santa Fe, where we will have the conversation about how Santa Fe comes in to convene this task force. So I think that was where my question kind of was, or whatever. Thank you, Commissioner Cornell. I do remember the city manager saying that the city has a set-aside amount for gun violence. I need a reminder, Manager Curry, as to what that amount is. I vaguely remember, is it 120? 150? $150,000? Okay, $150,000?
Yes.
Okay.
So Christie, are we asking the city and the county for 30,000 each times 8, 240 to be split?
So the total was 204,000, and I believe the request, if possible, was that they would split the cost.
Correct.
If I might?
Please.
So we asked, I had a conversation prior to this meeting last week with Ms. Kiner, and she was kind enough to share with me the organizations that Christy shared with you a few moments ago. I asked John Alexander and Chief Dixon, who are actually the two people who are leading our gun violence effort on behalf of the city, to just do a little background research in terms of where the city has already put funding, into play in some of these entities, and I'd like to put that in the record. Relative to the 150,000, we actually have a position that has been funded. We've recruited for it. We have candidates. Chief Dixon is our lead player on gun violence. I believe they have an interview this week. I have interviews this week. It's tomorrow to select that person on behalf of the city that will be our coordinator or manager relative to the gun violence programming, however that plays out. And we also have a meeting on Friday, I believe it is, of this week with Santa Fe as well, to continue the conversations that we started with President Brody and with Dr. Brown, just to be able to better understand where they are. But I don't know whether it would be Chief Dixon or you, John, that would at least kind of talk about where we are with some of the entities that are part of the proposals that you all are still trying to get funding for.
Mr. Alexander?
Good afternoon. John Alexander, Director of Government Affairs and Community Relations. So as City Manager Curry stated, we work with Director Kiner and Mrs. Gowai. We received the applications last Thursday, began to comb through those, and just analyzing to see, as she stated, what resources that we're currently providing to some of those organizations, as well as ensuring that we're not duplicating services as well. So we're still in the analyzation phase of those. She's already stated about seeing what programs are within the city limits versus those that are not, even those that have transient populations that's close to the city limits, where the kids kind of vacillate back and forth. We're taking a look at those as well. And so as we continue to do that process, we'll update and continue to work with Director Kiner and her staff.
Relative to the $150,000, we as a city, we haven't programmed any of it. It's still out there. I did not want to start chipping at it until we were under some kind of an arrangement with Santa Fe, because I thought that was an important piece to at least get covered before we start chipping away at the 150. I will share with the City Commission that relative to ARPA, that there are some funds that may be residual, not being utilized by some of the organizations that will be able to be reprogrammed. We'll bring that dollar amount at some point to the commission, and maybe at some point in time we can make a recommendation to you relative to those funds in the gun violence category or in the public safety category. I also asked John in conversations with you, Director Kiner, if there was a time limit or some kind of a time frame that, may constrict us with these or restrict us with these programs, and I was told there was no real timing issue.
Our goal would be to have them start in January.
Okay.
So, the next month and a half, since we're almost middle of November, that the goal would be to start in January, but certainly if we needed to wait a little bit more, maybe the end of January, we could.
Yeah, but I, again, if I might, Mr. Mayor,
and Madam Chairperson, it would be my recommendation not to make a decision today on spending the 150 until we're further along with our conversations with Santa Fe and have a better understanding of what we would have available out of our ARPA residual to make a recommendation.
Commissioner Clark.
Thank you very much for that, Manager Curry, because that was where my mind was. We haven't had the conversations. The task force itself is going to incur costs that we're not sure of. And then if we do move forward with the idea of the Office of Neighborhood Safety, there will be some costs there as well. So thank you for that, Manager Curry. I really, once again, I'm excited about the possibility. Thank you to Ms. Kiner for letting us know that there is no immediate need to make a decision today, that you said January is when you kind of want to have a better idea. Okay, I think that's doable. By that time, those conversations will have occurred with Dr. Brody, and I think we should have some clearer direction as to where we're headed and what may need to be allocated where. So, thank you.
Actually, I'm of the same mind, so some of the very things you were talking about is exactly what I was thinking about. And the timeline that you provided, Mr. Rector, is helpful. I would just indicate, so for the manager, when we do have some details that come back on these organizations and we're able to make some decisions, we're going to really need to know concretely what's the oversight. Now, the fortune is the fact that the Children's Trust is over it gives me a lot of comfort. But we don't want to be in a position where we don't have access to things. Let's say there is a decision to be made. We're going to want to know, what are they providing through the Children's Trust that allows us to account for what they're doing with their funds? And I think the very nature of this particular board, that's mainly on this side of the table, plus you all as executive staff, probably gives us the security about that. But it'll be important because we did have a previous audit that spoke to our lack of ability to get third-party funding information and caused us real issues. So that would just be something that when it does come back, we can kind of have some of those details, MOU types of information and accountability. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Willis.
Manager Curry, the position that is soon to be hired, can you remind me what the title is of that position?
Gun Violence Intervention Manager.
And so that was not part of the set aside 150,000?
No, it is.
To be determined, but that it's part of the city's effort?
Yes, it is not a part of the 150, it is a part of the city's effort. It will actually be funded from ARPA.
And this person would be able to at minimum, be some contribution to a task force, to not run the task force, but would be our direct staff liaison to the task force,
City's
correct?
effort, arms, legs, ears, whatever.
But at this point, not necessarily completely run it, because I think we realized through our conversation that that task force is going to be, could be a lot bigger than just, oh, it's a task force, bam, it's there. But that eventually will need to be staffed somehow, but we did not commit on the city side yet. And that there would be some funding needed. That's why the 150 is there, potentially to be our contribution to a larger group or collaborative effort.
And to just general programming. You know, as we get a manager and a coordinator on board, working under the leadership of Chief Dixon, working with Chief Scott and John and all of the, you know, community players, just having some resources to be able to program out, you know, in a well thought out manner.
Okay, so, but if we wanted to quickly decide that we're going to fund $102,000, that's 2/3 of what we set aside for the year. But those are potential options that gives us some thought process, or it gives me a little idea of how we could spend the money we've set aside. But it would seem at this point a little premature to set that all aside, because we may need to be more in the funding of a task force that is setting up for longer term, not for the immediate need in January, though there is immediate need, but we're probably talking about a longer, more planned out process well into the future, not immediate funding concerns. So that's where I'm at, where I think it's, I love the idea of getting dollars out the door and into people's hands who are going to do good work, but if what we're focused on is a much more long-term approach, an expansive collaborative approach than that 150,000 the city has may need to. We're going to have to sit and really think about it before we hand that all out.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, I believe two of the organizations that are on that list, and I won't mention them, but I know that 2 of them actually were funded through our One Nation One project. Maybe for a different scope of work, but they have come through the city for funding and were awarded.
Very good.
Commissioner Cornell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I think the idea here was, from the trust perspective, this is a first-year kind of program, mentoring, and so if it folds into the gun violence efforts that the city and the county are doing, then let's try to utilize the trust to leverage those administrative resources. I think that's the only idea. I wouldn't expect us to make a budget decisions in November for a January deadline, but I did want us to at least start the conversation.
All right, anyone else? How about anybody from the public? Okay.
So I just would like to share this one little tidbit. This morning I was driving in, and NPR is doing a series on juvenile justice. I caught the tail end of it, and I think you can go back to Morning Edition and catch the whole story, which I haven't done, but it was very interesting. Children as young as I think 8 had encounters with the law, and some of the things that they said, which are things that came out in our strategic plan: boredom, lack of access to job training, lack of access to constructive time to fill that after those after-school hours, lack of access. They want to work to be able to. We found, Teen Zone was something. Myself and another one we brought back to before Edie Kiner came with us, and we decided to pursue that. But it was something that I just know that having young people connect work and money, I've seen the good from that. But to hear the young people talk I listened to about like 5 minutes of the segment this morning driving in, but that's what one of the young men said, was that they wanted to work and they didn't have options to work and access to work, so they started doing stupid stuff. He said, first stealing cars for parts, then selling drugs. You want to be able to have clothes and shoes and to do that, and their families being poor. So. But I do think that all of us in the room here having resources that we're investing in to do that, I think we could do that. It won't have to have another study or whatever. All of us probably know and have heard that. But however it is that we can coordinate to be able to really plug in, build up Teen Zone. You all have spaces that they can, students can work, job training, education, recreation. I don't think kids out of school time should be out. Every one of them needs something to do.
Absolutely.
Constructive.
Absolutely.
Commissioner.
Chair Certain, to your point, you're singing my song there, and it's great to hear kind of like this macrocosm conversation. Well, right here in Gainesville, I've had conversations with youth, and I was looking through my phone so I could find a picture that I took with some of the young people at the Summer Sling program over at Duval, and they wrote on the chalkboard some things that would help to keep them out of trouble, things that would help them to keep guns out of their hands, and to really be able to do something productive. And as I'm still looking for that picture, I'll tell you that what resonated and what was a resounding theme were these things that everybody pretty much around this table has heard me say: places to go, things to do, mentors, and jobs. Those are always the 4 things that you hear. I heard it from those young people that day at the Summer Sling program. I've heard it from young people that I've encountered just walking through the neighborhood, in the grocery store, etc. So I'm always excited and encouraged to hear about the work that we are doing, but I certainly want to find a way that we can continue to provide a level of support. It's quite possible that we can do it, and I'm hoping that the city manager is hearing me say, I know I don't direct you individually, but I think it is important to all of us around this table to make sure that we are continuing to find ways to serve the young people in this community, not just because of what the statistics are, but because they're literally asking us for it. They are asking us for it. And I'm just grateful. If I find that picture before we leave here, I will pass it around. But it was really inspiring, and it was wonderful to see, because young people like being included in the process. They like being heard. They like to know that somebody is listening and that they stand a chance of you actually doing something. And so I'll say this, and this is premature, but it's intentionally premature. As we begin to put the legs on this task force, it is my hope that youth task force element is something that gets pushed right out to the forefront. Because I think if we are going to address gun violence meaningfully, they have to be at the helm of this effort. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So let's hear from the public. Chief Dixon, you want to fill
Yes,
us in and then we'll...
good evening. On behalf of the city manager, I'm Joe Dixon, Chief of Gainesville Fire and Rescue. And we were just sitting there talking because some of the things the topics that have come up were products of the Gun Violence Summit, which said these are things that we need to do. And the city is certainly moving forward with, there have been some cuts because of some fiscal restraints. But we have, there are various programs that are going on in the city right now. We talked about midnight basketball, the $150,000 set aside for gun violence. There's also been an investment of about $2 million on the Albert Ray Massey Park. Now, it's not a job, but it gives our youth something to do, so we're very proud of that. There's also One Nation, One Project, which there was, I believe, $650,000, $648,172, I believe to be exact, that's been invested, led by Brandy Stone, that has helped us with our youth. We also have a $250,000 seed program that we're going, the Riker House in its past form does no longer exist, but we have $250,000 that we're going to be looking, we just completed the draft RFP, but we're looking to put forth an RFP so we can bring something forward to fill that gap for the other school, after school time or out of school time for our youth, as well as there's it's not necessarily for school age, but it is if they're graduating. We also have a few months ago we had the Public Safety Academy. It didn't do well, but what we were able to do was work with HCD and the CBDG grant, and we were able to fund a program that allows us to hire individuals that live here and closer to Gainesville, because what we were doing is Gainesville Fire and Rescue. We're hiring people that live in Jacksonville, Orlando, Miami for the fire department, and they would get the job, and when the job opened up there, they would go home. So these are ways that we're engaging them. We're working with Lofton also, because that's going to be the core, the feeder for that program. So we are, again, on behalf of the city manager, working and doing something to engage our youth. So it may not be in the ways we have to be innovative, and we are trying to do so. So she made sure that I put that on the record.
Thank you.
Chief Dixon, Chief Scott, I think the BOLD program is serving younger folks than it used to as well. Is that accurate?
It's serving a wider range. It's serving a wider range of people. I think we start down as low as 14 and go up to, it has no upper limit, quite frankly. We're engaging folks of all age, trying to make sure that we provide a path that will assist them to a more productive life. So we introduce them to the resources such as education, mental health counseling, substance abuse counseling, helping them with employment, the whole gamut. And we start with kids as young as 14.
Very good. All right, thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes. I thought actually, are we doing public comment now?
Yeah,
Mayor?
I'll defer.
Mr. Bond's been waiting patiently, so. Yeah.
Thank you. Years ago, when I worked at Community Control, a job I wish I'd never had, I found that the kids, my coworkers, told me to be afraid of, never be alone with, don't turn your back on. All they wanted was somebody to trust them and listen to them and to believe that they had a future. On NPR just this morning was some research talking with kids involved with the Just Us system, and the top issue was that they were bored.
Yeah.
So the shuttering of Reichert House this summer was like lighting a fuse. But I'm glad you're talking about all the things you can do to help occupy kids' time constructively. But I also wish that after y'all get through with your current wrestling match with the legislature, you gotta fight back about these preemptions amongst the hundreds of inappropriate preemptions the state legislature has done is that you cannot control the proliferation of guns in your jurisdiction. That's just insane, and I wish you'd find a way to fight it. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Mr. Mayor, I thought I heard that y'all potentially may have $250,000 for after-school programs. You know, the trust is already, we have RFP or RFP in process. We have RFPs. It might behoove both entities to maybe, you know, that might be something that we could administer for the city, because we have, the great thing is we have money that we are offering for after-school programs, but it comes with, you know, measurables. You know, we want performance measures as well to demonstrate, so that when when we solicit again from the public that we would like this tax to continue, we can show people what has happened as a result of these after-school programs and whatnot. So if we kind of have the infrastructure in place, if that would help, that it may not go for this round, depending upon when y'all get through your budget discussion, but, you know, we could always offer a second round, because there's more, you know, there's more requests than there is money. So if that's something that y'all would like to potentially collaborate on, you know, we might be able to help you. I know I just threw something on staff, but
That's what we
you know.
do, right? I mean,
Well, actually, they've already have the process now and awarded, and just need additional dollars. And so Commissioner Book was saying about getting documentation. I don't think that would be an issue. Ask our providers of the hoops that they have to jump through to get reimbursed. We often hear of the angst, so, yeah.
That's a good suggestion.
Teacher should have tried.
Okay, anyone else on this topic? All right, Madam Clerk.
Member comment.
Anybody around the table? Commissioner Willis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Madam Chair. One thing I've been thinking a lot of since I ran and got elected, and that about how we engage youth and young workers in our community, how we build our communities, how we plan our communities, and you know, as far as, you know, kids being born and needing jobs, at least in my lifetime, there's never been a better time to go out and get a job. There are states that are rolling back child labor laws because they're desperate for more labor. And so, and I've said this in some of our meetings, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, everything was jobs, 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 jobs. And now, to a much larger degree, it is housing, 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 housing. That is I think a lot of people think it is the number one thing challenging families, challenging workers, and in effect, challenging children, because children live in homes with families and workers. And, you know, and Commissioner Denton Walker has talked about the identified need of a place to go, something to go do. And I just want to reiterate, when we plan communities to be nothing but miles and miles and miles of just residential space, there is nothing for a child to do. Besides go to a friend's house, which, you know, that already exists. But to be able to go do, when we talk about going and doing something, it's in a space, sometimes it's a job, that's great, but it's in what's called a third place, or it is in some other public space. It's parks, it's, you know, the public places that we fund through our taxes. But some of it is commercial space, it's just somewhere to go do something else. You got a lot of money, you can figure it out. You know, go join Gainesville Health and Fitness if you have a lot of money to spend and you want to do it. But lower cost things, I know me personally, though some people say they think I was getting into trouble. When I grew up, the ability to ride my bike to a filling station and, you know, go buy a candy bar or whatever. But that filling station existed probably as an exemption to residential zoning, thank God. And so within distance, there was a place for me to go with my brother. We didn't get into too much trouble, but it was something to do, somewhere to go. I also lived within biking distance of a university. That helped. But having those spaces, commercial spaces, mixed-use spaces, when we talk about it, unless we're willing to bus a child all the way across the county, when we look at things, when we build, when we have zones that are nothing but residential, perhaps in the past we thought it worked, but I think in the future, the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years, as we're going to see a shift in where people live. Older, some more suburbanish communities are going to cycle through, and there are going to be people of lower incomes that live in those areas. And all residential may have worked when it was upper income, middle to upper income, because people would get in a car, there were two families, but when that housing becomes occupied with families that only have one car, or some that have no car, we're gonna need spaces in those communities. So some of this is on the city side. The county probably has plans and thoughts as well, but I just want to reiterate that when we do nothing but residential for blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks, or even miles, it's real challenging for a child to be close to something to do. So I just want to remind ourselves that the physical environment we build affects everything that was on our list today. Suitable spaces, literally the transit we're doing to get kids to places. And if we think that gun violence matters about how close someone is to potentially jobs as well, or potentially close to just something to do that's not in their home, or not just next door to their friend's house, all of those are based on how far families live from the other uses in their community. So I just want to reiterate that zoning builds the community. Our built environment is based on the zoning decisions we make, which can be unpopular for the people who sign mortgage documents, but for the children in those communities who we want to grow up to be able to sign mortgage documents, we got to think about them too when we build and plan our cities and counties and school, and even where we place our schools as well. So I just want to reiterate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner Willetts, you touched on something, the very last thing that you said, that I just wanted to ask a question and not take us down a long, long road, but while I have a captive audience here of at least two folks who can speak to this, or who I can allow to at least hear my heart. Duval Elementary is one of those places that sits in the heart of a community that when it shuttered, it shook this city in a lot of ways, but it certainly shook the surrounding community. It shook me because I live right in front of it. It was a school where my parents met in the 3rd grade on the stage. It was a school that I went to. But it's also the school that I've had the opportunity to watch educate folks for generations. I watched something very unique when Dr. Leonetta McNeely was the principal of that school, and she had the School of the Arts there. And she took the school from, I believe it was an F to an A in a matter of about 9 months. When that School for the Arts and Dr. Leonetta McNeely left, we saw the impact. It reverted. And then over time, and I will admit, I was away from Gainesville, had not yet moved back home, and so my finger wasn't on the pulse as much as to what was happening with Duval. But when it closed, it sucked the life, literally, I believe, out of a community. And so to the idea that you made so well, Commissioner Willetts, the opportunity to walk to places to go, but specifically to walk to school. Duval is a huge community. And much more specifically, it's one of the densest populations of African Americans in Gainesville. I know that we talk about literacy and the improvements that need to be made in that space. We've acknowledged, or the statistics show us, how access to quality education does help us to address gun violence. It's one of those root causes. A lack of access to quality education is a root cause of gun violence. And so when I think of Duval Elementary, this is just Commissioner Duncan Walker revealing her heart. And Shane, you and I have had a couple of these conversations and walked through Duval and gone to my 2nd grade class. I can no longer fit in the chair. I am concerned about the highest and best use for the community that needs to be able to walk to quality education. I am concerned about the highest and best use for a community that is leading in this area in the instances of gun violence. District 1 is a hotbed, okay? There is a lot of opportunity. I know the school board has had a number of conversations. I think you're at a pivotal role or a pivotal part now where some real decisions have to be made. I know several conversations have been held about possible public-private partnerships and everything that it could be. But I think it is so critical and so crucial for us to consider ways that we can still allow that community the opportunity to be able to walk to school. Walk to school. The population of children, I don't think diminished. One of the questions as I wrap this up, because I don't intend to get into this conversation here, I certainly do want to talk to you all, probably as individually and maybe even in a different type of meeting. The children are still there, the families are still there, the need is still there. I'm curious about a needs assessment. What is the need? Has it been assessed? I mean, I can look at it from my perch at my house. I can look at it from my perch as a District 1 commissioner. I can look at the schools that exist in my district and where they are versus where we would hope that they would be, but I don't know where you all are, okay? I'm only sharing my heart here today, respectfully, wanting to partner with you to ensure that the folks in District 1 have the opportunity to give their kids a future. Because that's what this conversation is about. The Children's Trust does a wonderful job of that. You all provide resources in that way. And so I'm very, I'm on pins and needles, to be honest with you, because I know that we are at a point where we have to make a decision. You all will make a decision as to what happens with the school. Just want you to hear, I don't know how far down the road you are, but the idea that it would return to something that is able to educate the youth, the young people in that community, I think for me is something that I really, really wish we could find a way to see, whether it is a public-private partnership or whatever it is. That is just my heart. And I thank you all for your work. I know things have not been easy, Chair Certain, I know that, okay, and Shane, I do. I just want you to hear my heart, and I'd love to work with you. Those are my neighbors, my constituents, people that I care a whole lot about, like I know you do. We just want to see, I think too, this feeds into this concept of equitable development as well. I'm not going to go off on that tangent, but the city is, the city has started its conversation about that, you know. Access to the resources that we need for a good quality of life on every side of town. And we know that schools are a part of that. So I'm done, I promise, it's over. Thank you, I conclude.
Thank you for sharing.
For sure.
To get together.
For sure, thank you.
I think one of y'all talked about to go, y'all have that scheduled?
Talking about zoning.
What's that?
You're talking about zoning.
But have you put that on the calendar? Is it,
We have, what we've discussed before, the two leases there that are up May 31st. So, and yes, we're focused on rezoning and strategic planning and all of those good things. And we've talked before, so, and I have a vested interest in my heart for what we're doing in preschool as a community, which would take a private-public collaboration, or what we're not doing in preschool, and how we help our young children get to places where we can connect with them. And as we've discussed, that's academically, that's their well-being through the arts and all of that. So I think there are some excellent opportunities there. And you've heard me speak my passion too. So we got a lot of kids eligible, 3- and 4-year-olds that we need to get into some type of preschool, not a daycare, but a preschool within our city and outside of our city and our communities. And we haven't gotten there yet. And so my thing always is why not Alachua County universal preschool? We can't do the state and we can't do the nation, but why can't we do Alachua County with Santa Fe College here, the University of Florida, the city, the county, the school board, the community foundation, the Ed Foundation, CTAC. There's a lot of players here that could make that happen in Alachua County. Will we? We'll see. And I think that could open up a lot of opportunity and access that currently is not there. And it goes back to housing, and it ties into poverty, and it ties into opportunity. So, you know, I can't figure that out, but I would say too, as all of us, you know, what are we doing for those 3 and 4-year-olds that don't have a choice necessarily? And they may not even be in a daycare, much less a preschool. And so that's supporting our families that may not have the wherewithal to get their children into programs that they need. So that's where I would say also, how do we figure that out? And meet our kids in our communities and get them into preschool settings that do celebrate the child when we get them on campus. So, before we start learning. So, but thank you for sharing your passion. We've shared some of that before. Well received.
All right, anybody else? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.